Muscle contraction begins with a signal from the brain. The brain processes information from the body and determines when and how muscles should contract. This decision is sent through electrical impulses traveling down the spinal cord to motor neurons. These motor neurons carry the signal to the muscle fibers, which are the cells that make up muscles.
I'm the brain and I send electrical signals to the motor neurons. I communicate with the muscles via the nervous system to initiate contraction whenever needed.
I'm the motor neuron, and I carry the electrical signal from the brain to the muscle fiber. When I reach the neuromuscular junction, the point where the neuron meets the muscle fiber, I transmit the signal to the muscle through the release of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine.
When acetylcholine is released from the motor neuron, it binds to receptors on the muscle fiber membrane, known as the sarcolemma. This binding triggers an action potential in the muscle fiber, which travels along the sarcolemma and deep into the muscle fiber via the T-tubules.
Once acetylcholine binds to the receptors, it causes a change in the electrical charge across the muscle fiber membrane. This generates an action potential that propagates along the sarcolemma and travels down the T-tubules, ensuring the signal reaches deep within the muscle.
After receiving the electrical signal, I'm ready for contraction. The action potential travels deep into the muscle fiber and reaches the sarcoplasmic reticulum, a specialized structure that stores calcium ions.
At the sarcoplasmic reticulum, the action potential causes the release of calcium ions. This is a crucial step as calcium plays a vital role in the sliding filament theory. The calcium ions diffuse into the cytoplasm of the muscle fiber, where they will interact with the actin and myosin filaments.
We're the calcium ions, and we're released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum into the cytoplasm. Our job is to bind to the regulatory protein called troponin, which is located in the actin filaments.
I'm troponin. When calcium binds to me, I change shape. This change pulls on trypomyosin, moving it away from the actin binding sites. Trypomyosin. Normally I block the myosin binding sites on actin, preventing contraction, but when troponin pulls on me, I shift, exposing the binding sites so myosin can attach.
This is the beginning of the sliding filament theory. Once the binding sites on actin are exposed, the myosin heads can attach to actin, forming a cross bridge.
I'm actin, the thin filament. My structure has binding sites that are usually hidden by trypomyosin. When calcium binds to troponin, trypomyosin shifts, exposing my binding sites, allowing myosin to attach.
I'm myosin, the thick filament. Once actin's binding sites are exposed, my heads can reach out, attach to actin, and form a cross bridge. I then perform the power stroke.
In the sliding filament theory, the formation of the cross bridge leads to the sliding of the actin filament along the myosin filament, which is the physical basis of muscle contraction.
After I bind to actin, I use energy from ATP to pull the actin filament towards the center of the sarcomere, the functional unit of the muscle. This is called the power stroke. As I pull actin, the muscle shortens, causing contraction.
I'm ATP, and I provide the necessary energy for the myosin head to pull on actin. After the power stroke, myosin needs to detach from the actin to reset for another cycle. This process requires more ATP.
ATP binds to the myosin head, causing it to release from the actin filament. The hydrolysis of ATP provides energy, allowing myosin to cock back into its high energy position, ready to form a new cross bridge.
With the energy from ATP, I reset my position, and I'm ready to form another cross bridge with actin. This cycle continues as long as calcium ions are present and ATP is available.
This repeated cycle of cross-bridge formation, power strokes, and detachment is what causes the actin filaments to slide past the myosin filaments, shortening the sarcomere and thus the entire muscle fiber. This process is how muscle contraction occurs at the molecular level.
As long as ATP is available, I will keep supplying energy for myosin to continue pulling actin, leading to muscle contraction. Without ATP, the muscle would be stuck in contracted state. This is known as a rigor mortis.
Once the brain stops sending the signal, the muscle stops contracting. The motor neuron ceases to release acetylcholine, and the action potential in the muscle fiber dies down. The sarcoplasmic reticulum actively pumps calcium ions back into storage.
When I stop sending signals, the motor neuron no longer releases acetylcholine, and the muscle fiber stops receiving the electrical signal to contract.
With no more acetylcholine or action potential, the calcium ions move back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum where we stored until next contraction.
With calcium gone, I return to my original shape, which lets trypomyosin move back into place. Now that troponin isn't pulling on anymore, I slide back over actin's binding sites, blocking myosin from attaching again.
Without calcium, we can't stay bound together. This stops further contraction and the muscle relaxes.
With actin and myosin no longer interacting, I elongate and return to my relaxed state. The muscle lengthens as the filaments slide back to their original positions.
And so, the muscle relaxes, ready to contract again when the next signal comes. The entire process from the brain signal to the sliding filaments and back to relaxation happens in perfect coordination, allowing us to perform movements and actions. And that's the process of muscle contraction and relaxation explained at the molecular level. From the electrical signal to the sliding of actin and myosin and back to relaxation, everything happens in perfect coordination to allow muscles to contract and relax.
Contractions go. I love anatomy, this I know. It's funny how some distance makes myosin seem so small. But if you look more closely, myosin's thicker overall.
This cycle continues as long as calcium ions are present.
Sliding filament theory, the formation of the cross bridge leads to the sliding of the actin filament along the myosin filament, which is the... At the sarcoplasmic reticulum, the action potential causes the release of calcium ions. Why are you...
I transmit the signal to the muscle through the release of the neurotransmitter acetyl. I don't know how to say that, yo.